Al-Hafiz Ahmad bin Hajar al-Haythami rahimahullah ta'ala al-Makki, he has a famous book known as Az-Zawajir an Iqtiraf al-Kabair, a 2-volume book in which he lists all the ailments, the illnesses of the heart as well as the sins, the outward sins. And he mentions in the introduction that in the beginning of this book I shall place the ailments of the heart first. Why? Those diseases of the heart are worse than the sins of the outward. If someone drinks alcohol, his sin is momentary, meaning it lasts for a short while. He drinks alcohol, he becomes intoxicated, and then the state of intoxication goes away. And remember, the angels write down the sin only after 6 hours after a person has performed the sin, in case he may repent. But the illness of the heart is such an illness that a person carries that illness in the heart at all times. So he's continuously sinning. So Al-Hafiz Al-Haythami rahimahullah ta'ala mentions that it is very important to place the ailments of the heart first, so a person can rid himself of those ailments. And remember, the ailments of the heart are to do with Islam, meaning the practice of Islam a person should avoid. This is not advanced ihsan or tasawwuf. These are the basic aspects of Islam, to avoid the ailments of the heart. So he mentioned the first one as being riya, ostentation, showing up. A person invalidates all his actions if he is doing something out of riya. In the same way, and before people enter the spiritual path, they should learn these ailments of the heart and learn the cure to those ailments also, before even entering a spiritual path, or before claiming to be a wayfarer on the spiritual path. He mentions al-ujbu, self-conceit. This is when a person considers himself better than others. He mentions al-hasad, which is envy. When you see the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on fellow believers, and you wish that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove those favors from them, that is known as al-hasad. This is haram, prohibited. In the same way, he mentions rancor, hatred for other Muslims. In the same way, takabbur, arrogance. Arrogance towards Muslims. Arrogance towards creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the same way, he mentions hubbul madhi, which is love of praise. That the soul, the ego wants praise. So this is something that the ego demands from a person. This is an ailment, a disease of the heart. In the same way, hubbul jah, which is love of status. A person would want status amongst others. Now this can have a religious aspect to it, that a person can want a status amongst religious people, but it can also happen, generally it happens in worldly things, but it also happens amongst religious people. In the same way, muhabbatu dunya, love of the world, having love of worldly things in the heart. In the same way, talabu shuhra, seeking fame. This is an illness of the heart. In the same way, ta'zeem al-umara wa tahqir al-masakin, venerating the rulers and deeming the believers, the poor people as deeming them as being something low. Tahqir, ignoble. In the same way, ittiba'u shahwat, following the desires. Shahwat is in reference to the carnal desires, going out of the parameters of the Sharia and following those carnal desires. In the same way, he mentions pretentiousness. This is what we call flattery. When someone meets someone, in order to attain something or to gain favor with that person, you become pretentious. You may praise that person in order to flatter them. This is haram, it is prohibited in Sharia. In the same way, kufran ni'am, rejecting the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or not thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the favors He has given us. In the same way, hirs, coveting. Coveting is a greed for things. And also bukhl, which is stinginess. Remember, this should not be mixed with israf. Israf is wasting. But bukhl is love for wealth and wanting to keep wealth when it should be spent. In the same way, tulul amr, which is having long a desire for, and tulul amr is thinking that you will stay on earth forever and maybe you will repent one day. This is a sin. For a person to do so, he's falling into fooling himself, thinking he will live forever and maybe he will have a chance to repent and he continues sinning. In the same way, su'ul dhann, having bad thoughts about other Muslims without any strong grounds, I mean, not on a strong basis, having bad thoughts towards other Muslims. In the same way, inadul haqq, rejection of the truth. When the truth is presented, a person rejects the truth. In the same way, israr al-batil, staying firm on falsehood. When the truth is presented, a person rejects it as an element of the heart. In the same way, makr, deceit, makr, also plotting and planning against other Muslims. Ghadab, which is treachery and khiyana. And in the same way, ghafla, negligence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, qaswatul qalb, hardness of the heart. In the same way, he mentioned tamalluq. Again, I mentioned flattery. Tamalluq can also fall under flattery and pretentiousness. I'timad ala al-khalq, reliance upon creation. Having lack of reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and relying upon creation is an element of the heart also. In the same way, nisyanul khaliq, forgetting the Creator. In the same way, nisyanul maut, wa jur'atun ala Allah, forgetting death and being daring towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning doing things openly, sinning openly. In the same way, nifaq, hypocrisy. The nifaq meant here is nifaq amali, meaning saying one thing and doing another. In the same way, ittiba'u shaytan, following the way of shaytan. And he mentions being a slave of the ego. In the same way, rughba, being drawn towards worldly things, and batala, which is being lazy from worship. This is an element of the heart. Remember, the ulama mentioned if someone finds worship difficult, he should read in abundance, La ilaha illallah. When reciting in abundance, La ilaha illallah, this removes any laziness from the heart. The heart will encourage the person to worship. In the same way, karahatul amal, disliking action. And he mentions other things like qillatul khushu', lack of humility, and ghadab for the ego, anger for the ego, when a person becomes angry for the ego. These elements, he lists in total 40 elements, but the number of elements are not limited to these 40. So he states that outward actions of Islam are attached to these, removing these elements from the heart also. A person should not think that they act on the outward actions of Islam and the heart is filled with diseases and ailments, and they do not have to remove these ailments from the heart. Now, further down he mentions the similitude of this like a tent which is placed over impurities. You may have impurities, you place a tent over the impurities, the khayma, a tent which seems fine from the outside, but if someone enters the tent, they find all this putrid smells and waste inside of the tent. In the same way, the person who may outwardly seem fine, the heart may be diseased. His likeness is, in other books they give the example of an egg which is rotten. If you break the shell of the egg, the inside is putrid. So these elements of the heart are essential upon every Muslim to learn the definition of that ailment and the cure to that.